Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 106 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, March 10th, 2024, and the boys basketball season in the state of Illinois came to an official end yesterday, and we have one team left to talk about. We had Teutopolis playing in a super sectional on Monday night this week, and coming, relatively close to getting a second straight berth into the 2A state tournament, but coming up a little bit short to the Benton team that ended up having its own, getting into the state championship game, but losing that one. So that's what we're going to mainly talk about today. We're going to talk about the T-Town boys as long as my voice will allow me to. I as soon as the shoes lost on Monday night, my body began failing me a little bit. I was not feeling too well earlier in the week, but
What he said, I mean, sounds like Sallyitis to me.
well, it could be. You could be. I made it through the whole season without sounding like this one time, though, and now here we are.
I'm a little disappointed.
A little
I read,
disappointed. I didn't get sick at all during the year.
no, you had a nice, heartfelt Facebook post. You've been through the season. You did 70 games. You thanked Aunt B. You thanked everybody. Didn't even get a shout out.
Well,
I held your hand through the podcast. I did a game with you, an exciting game. You
I
know,
I didn't
hey,
realize
thanks to Aunt B, my third grade teacher, who told me going to rate. All
that
these
is
things.
that's not exactly accurate. I don't know. That was I guess I probably could have, but then I didn't bring up the board ops. I didn't bring up
I know. I
you know,
understand.
didn't bring up Millie either. Did I
Yeah,
work with
that's right.
Millie this year? I don't know. Millie didn't do a game this year.
No,
I don't
I'll
know.
tell you what, I've had a lot of people tell me they've been so impressed with your growth. I will say that.
Well, it's I appreciate that, whoever said that, but it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But yeah, we'll talk about the T-Town boys. A couple other things. Boys all state teams are out there, so we'll make sure to throw that a mention. And then also, I think actually I'll just throw this out there first. I think kind of kind of big National Trail Conference related news this
Yeah,
week. Uh,
I saw that. You kind of
Cumberland,
broke that. You sent me a text, broke that story.
yeah, Cumberland's coming in not next year, but in the 25-26 school year. Cumberland is going to join the National Trail Conference. They're going to stay in Lincoln Prairie as a football school, but they're going to be in the NTC for everything else. They're not going to play fall baseball because, again, they are a football
Right.
school. But yeah, that's a conversation that got started when IHSA was talking about going districts for football. Cumberland kind of realized, hey, there's really no reason to belong to this conference where we're driving, all over God's green earth to play our league games if we're not going to be if it's not going to be a football conference anyway. So they started looking into it, I think, and then just once the districts didn't happen, the idea didn't leave anybody's head. The NTC wanted them, I think, and Cumberland wanted to shorten its travel up a little bit. So it's a good fit.
Significantly shorten your travel. Football, you go once every 2 years somewhere. Basketball, you're pretty well going.
Yeah. I mean,
And the other thing is, Little Bird tells me really those weren't the only schools in the area involved with conversations.
it could be.
I don't have much substance with that, but where there's always a little smoke, you never know, Whitey.
I think the NTC has coveted a 10th team.
Sure,
Co-ops
it makes sense.
have gotten them to 9, 10. 10 makes things a little easier as far as scheduling, as far as your tournaments and stuff like that. So, and there's some NTC ties with Cumberland already. I mean, Justin Radel, he's the athletic director there. He's an Altamont boy, so
Right.
I'm sure it means the first time he coaches a game in the NTC tournament at Altamont, I'm guessing that's going to be a pretty special feeling for him.
Yeah. He'd get a
Uh,
lump in his throat.
yeah, Sammy James is a Neoga girl, and she coaches the girls basketball team there. So I know for a fact that she's very happy about this development. I think the only, as far as I could tell, and from what I heard, the only real pushback uh, from any of the member schools was that Cumberland's a little bit bigger than most of them. They're They're a 2A school and 4-class system,
But
barely.
they're what? One of the barely a 2A school.
Yeah, and like that may be, but if you really look at it like across the board, success, I mean, they're not they're not like gonna overmatch everybody in any sport. They're not gonna come in and just be like big man on campus. And that's no knock on them. I just think competitively they fit pretty well in most
They
sports.
are good. They are good fit. I agree with you 100%. And getting the tournament to 10, you do things differently now instead of this, you lose here, you clean that up a little bit. I think that
Mhm.
helps. So,
Yep. No.
and it'll be good. Like I said, it'll volleyball, they'll
Oh yeah.
enhance tournament volleyball, girls basketball,
Yeah.
track, all those things. Be nice.
Yeah. And quite frankly, like Cumberland is on the schedule for a lot of these NTC schools already.
Mhm.
They play. It's not a real super long trip for anybody, a couple of your South Central North Clay. It's a little bit of a way to go for them, but it's an easy drive, not a bad drive. So I think a good fit. I was glad to see it happen. Excited for everybody involved that is going to be that way. So there you go. Um, let's get down to Benton and T-Town. Carbondale Super-Sectional down at Southern Illinois University Monday night. T-Town lost this one 43-36, but they were down 15 at halftime, got within 2 in the second half, had a
And
couple
had
of
the ball
possessions.
and
Couple of
had the
possessions.
ball at least twice or two
Mhm.
possessions.
Yeah, where they could have tied or taken the lead and couldn't get it done either time. Once call I didn't like too much on the baseline went against them. It turned into a turnover, but then they had another look, just couldn't quite get over the hump. And that's the thing, I mean, you could look at that and say, well, they didn't make those shots, they didn't capitalize on those possessions when they needed to. But at the end of the day, being down 15 and only scoring 12 points in the first half is the story of the game to me, especially when the kid on the other team that everybody's talking about, the 6'8" Docker Tedeschi, everybody's talking about, we got to stop this guy. We got to figure out how to deal with this guy. He didn't, he hardly played in the first half. He got into foul
Well, he
trouble.
was in foul trouble, and he got 3 quick ones, which kind of surprised me after two that Ron didn't yank him, and but I watched NFHS. I didn't listen to you guys, and it's just because there's too big of a gap.
That's why you didn't get your
I've
shot at.
listened to you before, and there's usually about a 15-second gap, which I
Yeah,
can
it's pretty
tolerate,
bad.
but
It's
not.
pretty bad.
Yeah, you guys were already starting the game, and they were still doing the lineup. Um, in my humble opinion, that game was a complete microcosm of T-Town season. I think the first half was how they played a lot at times. The first half of the season were a little kind of hitting on 7 cylinders, just a little off. Their first possession, just a very first possession, silly turnover. And then I know Mitch Custer kind of barked at the kid who zigged instead of zagged to get things started. And, I don't know I don't know what they were running. I don't know, who kind of messed up there or who read it differently, but missed free throws,
Yeah.
missed some easy shots.
Yes.
Um, Defensively, in that second quarter, kind of got lost a couple times, which is very uncharacteristic, but sometimes happened to them in the first half of the season. Then they come out of halftime, and now they're the team you've watched the last couple weeks in the postseason.
Mhm.
Um, Defensively, they picked it up. I felt like a notch. Suddenly, Benton, in essence, you say, oh, Benton punched him in the mouth to start the game. Well, T-Town punched him right back in that third quarter. Really, it was more the fourth quarter. They cut it from 15, I think, to 8 at the end of the quarter, but they came out that fourth quarter and cut it from 8 to 6 to 4 to 2, bang, 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 bang. And I was texting Aaron Britton, and trust me, he was pulling hard for the shoes. But it was just a case where they had the chances and just couldn't quite get over the hump. But um, it was the way the season, and you and I talked a little bit before we started about this, so I'm going to go into my analogy of the two, comparing kind of St. Anthony and T-Town right now. If you were charting their seasons at that game, St. Anthony was a pretty high point, played really well. T-Town played probably their worst, I would say, one of their worst games of the year. And a lot had to do with what St. Anthony did to them. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it was just, but from that point on, St. Anthony really never, I mean, they didn't shoot it well, really, the rest of the year, probably other when they played Ramsey and, scored 100 points in that regional game. They just kind of they were winning, still winning games, but for the most part, probably other than one or two, just kind of doing enough to win.
Yeah.
And from that point on, T-Town, different club. We saw them in the regional final. You and I did that Newton game. We knew that was going to be a toss-up, but I was impressed with the way T-Town played and persevered. Then they played Tolono. Very, very impressive game, the way they played. I watched that one, listened to you guys. Then they turned around and played St. Joe and battled. But they were playing at such a higher level. Defensively, I felt ratcheted up a little bit at the end of the season. Offensively, it was kind of like after that T-Town game. And remember we talked about when Garrett sat down with 2 fouls in that second quarter, and T-Town had like a 30-second possession. No one even looked to score. From their once they got almost into the postseason and they're on, those kids just all of a sudden the confidence was there. And I loved watching Mitch Custer play like his hair's on fire. When he gets it and goes, he's so quick. And I know I've talked to some T-Town people and said, we like it, but it makes it nervous. But him running, pushing the ball at that tempo, that makes defense hustle and creates opportunities and mismatches. Sometimes it gets you sometimes some really, really good open, quick looks or baskets in transition. It wasn't like they were averaging 90 points a game, but it just had a different feel to it. And, I felt like, Joey Nieberg played pretty well through that regional and sectional. Obviously, Zach Nieberg, man of the year in the sectional. I saw a picture of him being interviewed, kind of taken from a little bit back by Channel 3, and like the whole town, the T-Town behind him going batshit crazy. That's awesome. So, Zach, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to try to get that framed and give to you for graduation. But someone will probably beat me to it. But they kind of relished the moment and were improving and eager for that next game. And on the converse, St. Anthony had, Nokomis in that shootout and, won by
13
10 or 12, 13. And then had them in the regional, or no, didn't have them in had them in the regional semis.
Yes.
And kind of won again, but, kind of hearing from people, we're just kind of not in sync where we were earlier in the year. And it was like that T-Town win was kind of a big high point because let's face it, that was a woodshed game. They whipped them.
Yeah.
Every aspect of the game. No one's ever going to debate that. But it was like that motivated T-Town to say, all right, we got to get ready for a postseason run. We got to go. And St. Anthony never got it going again. You know what I mean? They just never seemed to get it going again after that. So, huge shout out to the Shoes and their postseason run. You watch Benton, and then, Benton goes on and wins first game at state, and you're thinking, what could have been, getting to a championship. Just such an opportunity there for you to win a lot of money making that bet, the night after the St. Anthony game about T-Town, number one, being in a super. I think you'd have won a little money on that. But it just kind of goes to show you when you have that belief and that faith in your kids with, Chet's probably as good at getting kids to play hard as I've seen. And that's not a knock on anybody I've ever coached with or against or seen coach at other schools. But he gets a lot out of his kids in a lot of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know, and where we sat to broadcast that game courtside, we were actually right next to T-Town's bench.
Yeah.
And you know, Chet, he'll get in their face when he needs to too. You
Sure.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, listen, Garrett Gaddis has been a leader on this team all year long, and there was a point in that game, you know, where Chet took him out and had some pointed words for him, you know, some like basically saying, listen, you know, we can't have that anymore. I forget exactly what the circumstance was at this point, but you know, I mean, that's he'll do what he needs to, but yeah, he loves those kids. He
Yeah,
gets
he's not afraid to challenge his kids. He's not afraid to challenge them, and they realize it doesn't happen all the time. So it's like they're callous to it. Oh God, coach is yelling at us again. Which when coaches do that all the time, kids get callous to it.
sure. Yeah, I don't personally, I don't know if I'd be able to do the job without becoming that guy. I think you know.
You got to pick your moments. You got to have, I'll tell you what, it's important to have people on your bench when you're the
Well,
bad cop who turn around and can be the good cop.
and I
And
think that's another dynamic that they've got going on is I think he's got a lot of trust in the people that
yeah,
he has there with him.
well, Dave's been around a lot, and Justin Fleener's just so good with kids, and
Right.
he has such a he's so well respected for what he's done with baseball. It's still coaching kids, and he's able to do a lot of those things.
Right. Yeah, I think
So we'll see it. Like I said, very very good run down the stretch. I just loved, Tyler Promer had some big games for him
he
late,
did.
and I think he was quoted in a story somewhere of, yeah, hey, after senior night, I just decided I got to start being more aggressive, and huge help because now when he's aggressive, Custer's aggressive, Zach Nieberg's aggressive, all of a sudden, hey, and then other kids, Drew Haney coming in off the bench only scored probably 2 points every game,
Mm-hmm.
but when he scored, he was aggressively doing something. And you see, because I've seen him in a couple of JV games. I'm like, man, he's got a nose for the basket.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just some things, the same with Kramer. He's so physically strong and athletic. And my boy, Austin Blummer, had a nice postseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, and I don't think that part of it got away from them in the second quarter of that super sectional. Like I don't think they were necessarily like playing a passive brand of ball.
No,
Just don't think they
just
were playing very well, unfortunately. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to, offensively, especially. They just and listen, you got to give Benton a little bit of credit for that always too.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just the wrong time to have probably the worst
one of their
quarter of
worst
the
quarters.
postseason.
But it was a quarter of, when I say execution, not running plays right or doing things right, but finishing. It was the worst quarter of finishing, missing opportunities at the line, having some transition opportunities get away from you,
Well, that's the
some
thing.
silly turnovers.
If
And it
you
just snowballed on them in that quarter.
you sit there during timeouts in the late stages of the game when it's a one or two possession game, and then you start thinking to yourself, man, wish they could have had some of those free throws back. Wish they could have had a few of those turnovers back. You know, I mean, any one or two of those becomes so much bigger. But you know, Matt says this to me a lot. He's like, you know, the comeback is it's hard to come back, but it's getting out front and staying ahead. Like that last step of the comeback is the hardest thing, right? Like
Right. You burn so much energy, both
yeah,
physically and emotionally, to come back in a game.
yeah. Oh,
And then
you and I
it's
have
like
had this
you get
conversation.
there, we got possessions. And then I think Benton hit a three to take it to 5. But then T-Town answered right back and got it right back to 2, or maybe it was 4 and 7. But Custer hit a 3 and answered right back. And I thought, oh,
Yep,
there's
yep,
a glimmer.
yep.
And then Benton came right back and scored again. And it was like,
and I
got this close and they won't stop scoring.
And I liked that Benton team. They were very solid. Nothing
Yeah.
nothing flashy, nothing special, just very, very solid and athletic, disciplined. I mean, the Tedeschi kid didn't do a lot in that game because he just wasn't available much. But and Chet kind of said
Was
after
it
the game,
Billingsley kid was kind of did most of the
Billington,
scoring?
yeah, he scored
Oh, yeah.
13. He hit a couple of 3-pointers. He, it Chet kind of mentioned this in the post game. He said, I think we got so wrapped up in game planning for Tedeschi that when he wasn't there, we just weren't quite ready for what we needed to execute without him on the floor.
Because Benton got some open looks for threes. I mean, there wasn't a lot of threes they were hitting step back with a man on them. And it was like, okay, he's out of the game. Wow, we can go now. And they kind of, like you said, they quit. They lost that edge. I saw a little bit of the press conference for Benton after the championship game, Ron Weinmiller. And I know Ron. He very good. I don't know if it was his open remarks or something, but he just talked about how much them getting second state meant to the community. He said, yeah, these kids are hurting, but they're gonna come back here in 10, 15, 20 years with their kids and point to that banner and be so proud of what they've done. And he just put it all in perspective. Yeah, we got second. We're not happy with second. However, let's look at the big picture. Look like what we did.
Yep. And listen, I think the thing about that 2A field is that there was no runaway favorite. There was no, like last year, that DePaul prep team was just
Look, they showed they won the 3A this year, for God's sakes.
I mean, there wasn't a team like that in this year's 2A field.
No.
And Benton was in that championship game for quite a while. They
Yeah.
were down a starter because they had a kid go down and get hurt in the semifinal. Um, and they are not the deepest team, okay? They basically want to play six guys. They've got a seventh that they'll put in there, but like as far as, contributions, getting
Yeah.
involved in the offense. I mean, they
Short bench.
basically once that kid was hurt, then they had their five on the floor. And that's listen, playing a game of that magnitude, that's tough. That's a tough ask. And that Phillips team, Chicago Phillips, like they barely escaped their semifinal against Williamsville. They didn't play very
Yeah.
smart down the stretch. Not
I
not a,
watched a
not a real
little
good
bit of
fourth
that
quarter.
Williamsville Phillips game, and they were 1-2-2, three-quarter court trapping, falling back into a 1-2-2. And I saw Williamsville get back-to-back trips, real easy buckets, and just kind of, you're going to play this. Okay, we're going to make this pass. You're going to do this. This is going to be wide. And it was like textbook. And I thought, oh man, Williamsville's going to win that game. So I was but that's all I saw was two trips.
Yeah, no, I mean Phillips had a substantial lead in the fourth quarter, and um, I mean 8-10 points, and took some quick shots, took some bad shots.
Yeah.
Then once Williamsville took advantage of those and turned around, scored real quick, then Phillips turned it over, and all of a sudden it's a ball game again. They didn't close out very well. They had a kid in the Benton game, in the championship game. Their star player. He got into some foul trouble. You know, I just thought that I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like if T-Town had been able to get into that field of four, I would have felt as good about their chances as anybody, just because the one thing that they do not do and have not done down the stretch is play undisciplined basketball. And that would have gone a long way in some of those potential matchups they would have had.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. What I saw. And other little snippet I saw, boy, Mount Zion played teams that were loaded for athletes and looked very average. I mean, at times, very average at times. They were not able to take advantage of their athleticism, which they kind of did throughout the year with everybody. I think Metamora was their only loss till they got to the state tournament. A very good Metamora team, and they beat some really good teams along the way. But I just felt like that Mount Carmel game early, they were kind of okay until Mount Carmel kind of said, okay, no more pick and rolls for Anderson, and then they were done. Mount Carmel kind of had their way with them at that.
Yeah, it was a tough trip for Mount Zion, but again, a couple of, really solid
Yeah,
teams they ran.
represented the area, the Apollo. Heck yes, they
The
brought home hardware.
the 1A semifinals, actually the 1A and 2A semifinals were all fantastic
I
basketball.
thought they were. Michael O'Brien from the Sun Times says probably the best 1A and 2A 4 games he maybe can recall since the 4-class system.
A friend of the show, Charlie Forster, was there all 3 days watching all the games, and
Okay,
uh, he was updating his Facebook feed with some stuff, and he echoed all that. So the 1A championship game didn't turn out to be particularly close. The 2A championship game was good. 3A championship game, like we mentioned, DePaul College Prep, they got to win.
it just their defense causes problems, man. And the funny thing is, I watched a tape of their super sectional win last year,
uh,
and I didn't see it. They weren't given that team fits. Now, the Cobb kid, who was probably Homewood's best player, was on that team that DePaul Prep played in the Super.
yeah.
He transferred to Homewood Flossmoor this year.
Who
And
won the
maybe
4A
he
championship?
was causing what's that?
That's the team that won the 4A championship.
Right. So they had 2 transfers for sure. They had him, and then they had Hagemeister, who transferred from Lincoln Way East, the big 6'8" kid. I know he's not a big force, but he's 6'8" and he sees the floor a lot. So
The
yeah,
thing
it was kind of interesting.
that's the thing that people do see though, and it bugs them a little bit, is that like Phillips, the won the 2A championship game, best player on the team, came up from Florida, and it was a talking point during the broadcast about how he was looking at schools and deciding where to go, and you got transfers at Homewood Flossmoor. It turns people off a little bit, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it does. It's
Well,
a
the
tough.
IHSA came down on Kenwood this year, which was I was surprised they did. Kenwood, who was very highly ranked, I believe they're 4A, very highly ranked. Uh, at least 3 of their coaches were suspended postseason, and
uh,
probably 4 or 5 players, and it was questionable residency. And supposedly, again, I guess I should point a finger, but supposedly the CPS didn't want to enforce it, and the IHSA just came in and said no. And it's almost like a line in the sand was drawn. But there's just, you see, Aaron Britton puts out a spreadsheet every year showing the transfers. Okay. Who's transferred in from where in the state of Illinois? Very thorough list. And maybe 5% or less are south of I-80. And it's a list of probably, I don't know, I'd have to look at Aaron's list again. It's on his website, probably at least 70 kids. It's just shocking, especially when you see schools get 2 or 3 kids,
yeah. I mean,
who go from one team in the
they're never
public league or a suburb or the Catholic. Yeah, it's amazing.
they're never transferring they're never transferring to a worse team because like they like the coach better because it's a better living situation. It's always to a team that has a chance to go downstate and win a
Well,
title.
and at least the shot's been fired across the bow that they're not going to tolerate fake residencies.
You know, you mentioned Michael O'Brien, and I think it was him that had a tweet out there talking about he posted a picture of the third place game,
Yeah, the crowds were pretty abysmal.
and his point is that he doesn't think they should exist. And
He, I
I don't.
understand his point, but you got to have better management.
That's the thing. That's my point. The third place game needs to happen, and I have I know too many coaches and players who have participated in them, and how much it means to them to get that
Sure.
last game and play that last game and win that last game. Um, It needs to exist. It just needs to not be happening late at night on a Thursday on the second and be the second game that somebody plays that day.
Well, and I think Whitey, in Mike Wilson's humble opinion, you play 1A, 2A, and 3A semifinal games on Thursday. Okay. You come out Friday, you play 4A semifinal, then you play 1A, 2A, 3A third place. Then you come back Saturday, and the first thing you do is 10 o'clock in the morning, you move it up an hour, you play 4A third place, then championship. So then, you know what I'm saying? I hate
Yeah.
the fact, those are two things I hate. I hate the fact that one, you're done, you're up there one day conceivably and you're done. So it's not the same experience. But when you have the 1A third place game and you got to wait till the end to do out the trophies, it's just, you're not saving any time. Don't tell me you're saving any time, because the presentation takes the same amount of time, whether it's before the championship game or the 2A third place game or right after. You're not saving
Yeah.
time. Don't tell me you're saying, well, you maybe save 2 minutes of setup. I mean, I've been there. I've seen how quick they turn things over, but I don't like it because, and Coach, Craig Carr even said last week, Altamont girls get their trophy and there's a smattering of applause because there's no one there anymore.
Yeah, well, because you're asking, I mean, people have to come a long way,
Well, Altamont had what, 2 or 3 student fan buses? They got to go back home.
yeah, I mean,
If you do it after the game, those kids can be there and applaud their team, their classmates.
yeah, and I mean, in some cases, their families, I mean, people got to
Sure.
go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And listen, I understand that probably having to cram it all into 3 days is just a reality that we have to accept. There's probably no way to make it. There's probably no way to tack an extra day in there. There's a lot of logistical reasons for that. I without knowing, I'm just guessing that like it would be a huge expense to tack another day onto it. Maybe the venues won't agree to that. I have no idea, but I just feel like you need to sit down and rethink how you're structuring the thing and ask yourself, are we doing it this way because it's better for the kids and the programs, or are we doing it this way because it's the easiest way for us? And maybe there is no better answer, and I'm just
Well, we don't want to bring out the table twice. Well, come on. Hell, shit. You and I can go up and carry out the frickin' table.
I mean,
come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, and listen,
I don't know what it is, but, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm smart, I figured it out. And I've heard other people say kind of the same thing. But yeah, it's just, I mean, back in the old days, yes, when you played your quarterfinals in one day and then you came back and did your semis, but that was different.
Yeah, all I'm saying is
that's when you had 8 teams there.
Yeah, if you're going to only bring 4 teams per class to the state tournament, you got to have that second game for those teams that don't win the semifinals.
Yep, I agree.
It's at the end of the day, this is an experience for student athletes, and it's a once in a lifetime chance for them. And you can't just say, well, win the semifinal or else that's it for you. You got to.
Back in the day when you had, people would come back. I mean, I just think if you came back the next day and played that third, and Michael O'Brien's a smart guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm very impressed with his viewpoint. But on this one, I understand where he's coming from because there's no one there. But let's see if we do it the next day, if that changes.
And listen, people just don't come the way they used to anyway.
Right.
Like the crowds just aren't as big as they used to be, and that's never changing. And you could, I don't know all the, you can come up with whatever reason and blame for that you want, but at the end of the day, I mean, the kid, it just has to exist for the sake of the kids, and you can't let how the crowds or how you personally feel about it, the atmosphere, cloud your understanding of what needs to happen for the kids. So,
well, and the other thing is, Whitey, and I haven't been, I mean, yeah, I went up and watched T-Town last year and I didn't get the feel. Well, the other thing was there was a game before. I mean, so they were the first 2A game. Okay. So we're outside waiting to get in. When we got in, When I walked into my seat, there was probably 5 minutes to go in the warm-up. Why I don't understand why you're not letting people in the building. Oh, we're going to clear the gym after that makes
Well,
zero sense because
there was
I still remember, and granted, it was when I was coaching, it was still 2 classes. All right. However, I remember when I was Dave Bartlett's assistant, and we filled 2 vans, and we took kids up to the assembly hall, and all these schools. You'd see it was kind of cool. You'd see kids walking around in Letterman's jackets from all over the state of Illinois, and then you'd get together maybe at some watering hole with 30 coaches, and you're talking, and everybody's saying how they should be there, and they could beat every team here but the team that eliminated them. But it's still I don't know. I didn't notice it as much last year when T-Town was there. I didn't see that many teams and kids. And
no.
it's yeah, the assembly hall setup is a little different. I mean, you've kind of with that press row and the boxes, you've kind of taken a little bit of that continuity you used to have, but it's still I just don't know if you've lost that from all those kids and all those teams. That was a big thing.
Well, and I saw a lot of people postulating that somehow it has to do with being in Champaign instead of Peoria, and I'm not really sure I buy that either because
I I kind of like it being in Champaign, to be brutally
yeah, I mean,
honest.
to me that's just a matter of taste and a matter of geography. For some people,
Right. The only advantage I felt Peoria had, maybe 2 advantages. Number one was the experience, which was a nice thing. Okay.
yeah.
And yeah, okay, you send your kids in there and you don't have to worry about stuff. The other thing about Peoria, because I was on IBCA All State Committee, I check into my hotel Thursday, and then the next time I touched my car was usually Saturday when I came home Saturday morning. That was everything was close and pretty easy together. Champaign doesn't have that luxury. Those are the 2 luxuries I liked about Peoria. But Peoria let you in the building. They didn't say, "Oh, stand outside here and it's freezing cold." Okay, now you can come in. Okay, get in your seat. If you have to use the bathroom, you may miss the opening tip. I'm sorry, that's not right.
Yeah, we stood in line outside Assembly Hall or State Farm Center for the semifinal, for T-Town semifinal last year, and trust me, I had to listen to my daughter complaining and complaining about how bad she had to go to the bathroom, and I was like,
Yeah,
well, what are you gonna? I mean, I don't know. I don't logistically like. I don't know what the answer is. They seemed very concerned with making sure that nobody sat where they weren't supposed to sit, and that nobody got in without paying. They were very worried about all of that, and like I don't know.
and I
I'm not
understand
sure.
that, but don't make us stand outside and say, "Oh, you get 15 minutes before the tip. We're going to open the doors." Well, it's impossible to get all those people in 2 doors.
Yep,
That
yep.
was the biggest complaint I heard. Is then when people got in where you could see the floor, they're like, "Holy shit! There's 4 or 5 minutes before the tip,"
Mhm. Yep.
and you don't get a chance to create that atmosphere. That's the thing. I still remember um, watching teams come out on the floor for the first time out of the tunnel to warm up. Just the roar. I remember when in 1980 when the FEM group came out, the roar when they came out for that first round game, because FEM traveled incredible. I mean, that was the day it just red just kept getting wider and higher. Um, but you don't get that anymore because hey, we're not going to let you in because you may see a quarter of a game you're not supposed to see. Come on now.
Yep.
And I guess they had a deal. If it was Meridian and Williamsville, someone's fans kind of started pulling for each other, and then they kicked kids out of the section. So then the other team went to the other. I mean, come on, they're kids.
Yeah, it's not what we need to be worrying about. Not what we need to be
No,
worrying about.
no.
All right. Well, we can move on from that. I am sure that somebody from IHSA will be reaching out to both of us for, you know,
Wanting our input. Yeah.
yeah, asking for our opinions on things. So we'll look forward to that. And listen, there's a lot of things that goes well at these state tournaments. I don't want
No,
to
I
like it's a
Yeah.
clown show. It's not, it's not,
No,
but I just hope that they're looking at ways they
it
can,
needs some tweaking.
yeah. Yep. All right. All state. I'm going to start with AP, boys basketball. Um, we didn't have any first or second teamers, um, on the AP teams, but we had some honorable mentions in 1A. Brock Fearday from St. Anthony got on there as an honorable mention. He's on there with Caleb Gephardt from Diedrich and Ryan Schmidt from St. Anthony. And then Caden Miller from Altamont and Lucas Westendorf got they each
Special
got a
mention.
single vote, but that didn't quite get them on the honorable mention list.
Right.
So then in 2A, Garrett Gaddis from Teutopolis was an honorable mention, and Caden Nichols got a vote. I gotta tell you, Caden Nichols is awfully good. You know,
He's
if
fun to watch. When he gets on a roll, he's fun to watch.
I would have, and this is, I don't want to, I'm not trying to compare him and Garrett in any way at all, but I just think that they're both pretty good. And I think if one's on, the other should be on. That would have been the way
Yeah.
I would have, if I was just making
I
the
can
team
agree
list.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at these these first and second teams, you know, I did notice that on the 2A second team we had Paxton Gertz from Seneca on there, who played in the Christmas
Yep.
Classic this year, and of course has, with a name like Gertz, you know that he has local ties. We've already
Got
talked
some
about
family.
that. Yep. So that was good to see, but you know, a little bit of local flavor to the AP teams, but they're a little more, they don't name as many people, so you're not going to
Right.
get.
IBCA is a little bigger list, but again, that's also done by coaches. So
Yeah, that's kind of the trade-off, is that
yeah.
to me the IBCA list is done by people who see more players and have a little bit more of an education.
And being on that committee, it's amazing, you know, a couple days, day or two before you go to the meeting, you start getting faxes, because back then we didn't have email. Right?
Yeah,
So you'd get a
back in
fax.
the dark ages.
Yeah, you get a fax for some kid from Milledgeville who was 1,000-point scorer, and you'd get all these stats and stuff. And and the meetings were, I really enjoyed them because every district usually has 3 people there, 2 or 3 people. And I was on there. I think Gary Shirley was on there. Scott Bales was at Neoga at the time. He was on there. Coach Cruz, who was at DuQuoin. Um,
Is there
Kurt
any
Reed.
truth to the rumor that the first one of those messages you got was actually a stone tablet that a pterodactyl dropped into your?
Smoke. We had to read the smoke in the sky. Kurt Reed from McLeansboro. We usually sat together and maybe shared adult beverages during the meeting, and
Surely
maybe
not.
voted as a block to help kids in the, you know, from Effingham south, in essence, get on there.
Yeah.
It was fun. And then sometime we'll talk about, you know, I heard coaches talk about, you know, how good kids were. And then I heard coaches, you know, more or less call them out. You know, it was fun to hear the descriptions for Lucas O'Rear back in the day from Coach Reed on why he should be as a sophomore on the IBCA. And it was spot on, man. But it was very colorful.
Speaking of the IBCA list of the 10 first teamers, one of them was a St. Anthony kid. Ryan Schmidt gets on the first team. Um, only player from anywhere even real close that got on that first team. Second team, Brock Fearday on there. Jordan Quinn from Tuscola was a second teamer as well.
Was he the only Tuscola kid on there?
Let's see. Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah, interesting. Third team, you had Caden Miller from Altamont was on that third team. Now they put a few more than 10 on the third team. You had 10 first teamers, 10 second teamers, and then I'm not going to count them, but it looks like a dozen or 13 third teamers. So Caden Miller, who personal favorite of mine, glad to see him get some recognition. Love the way he plays. You know, not the most skilled basketball player, but a talented athlete. And he gets after it, and everything he gets is through hard work. You could tell, and pretty good kid from my understanding too. You had let's see, you on the special mention then, which was a longer list even then. You had Caleb Gephardt get on there from Diederich, as well as Lucas Westendorf. So those two Diederich kids got some special mention.
And one of the things to get on this team, your coach has to nominate you. And I know I've been in the meetings and coaches have thought, why isn't Sparky being nominated? And coach didn't bother reaching out to get him nominated. So, kind of the unwritten rule, if he's not nominated, it's kind of hard to put him up and say, because if they do it the way they used to, okay, who are our first team nominations from your area? You put them, they put them on a board, then you vote, and then the top 10 get on, and then second team, and those ones who are first teamers carry over to second team. Then you nominate second, and then usually anyone who was first or second who didn't make first or second or were nominated at least had a vote. Kind of was that's where the third team came from, and then it was. But I mean, it made sense how they did it, but yeah, I mean, it was. There were times you'd scratch heads, but it was kind of an unwritten rule. If they're not going to bother reaching out to us, trying to get them on, we're not going to nominate them.
Well, there it is. We did all conference. We knocked out
Yeah, we
all
did
all
that. We
conference
did
stuff.
NTC. How about 2A? Who was our 2A area?
Oh
I did.
yeah, that's right. I just did 1A there, so I do need to do 2A. I need to scroll a little bit here. 2A. Um, Third team, Caden Nichols from Newton got on there, and Garrett Gaddis from Teutopolis, where they were both on the third team for 2A. So scrolling down a little bit on the special mention, they didn't have as many special mention in 2A.
Yeah, I think when I looked at that list, I really didn't see anybody other than those two. Okay.
Those are the guys. I'm kind of looking at just kind of scanning the first and second teams for any players of local interest, if not on actual local teams. I mean, the Tedeschi kid that we just talked about is on the first team. You know, that's it's the only one that's really jumping out at me. You had some Breeze Central kids getting some.
I'm sure Coach Schubert's kid was on there somewhere.
Uh, yeah, Mason Schubert, second team. So
Yeah, nice player.
yep. So there you go. That pretty much wraps it up. I mean, that's the basketball season.
Basketball season is finished, Whitey. And again, we talk about it all the time. We had a girls team make the Final Four from our area, boys team make the Elite Eight, and it's just um, usually something like that's going to happen. And it kind of does. Now we'll have baseball and softball. And again, we'll see how deep someone can get. But that's the unique characteristic of this area that we've had success across the board in sports.
Yeah. And listen, St. Anthony's going to have a real good baseball team. They're going to be real solid, but I think there's some other potential candidates out there.
I think T-Town will have a little bit of a bounce back season this year. I think with Coach Fleener now being back full time, I think that will help.
we
Be interesting to see what FEM does. Obviously, they've lost their horse is pitching for Mizzou, doing pretty good. I see where he's pitched an inning here and there, and usually does a good job. Couple things I did want to give a shout out. The Keller girl.
Oh yeah, yeah. Isabella, she's already this spring during the track season, which has not been going on for very long.
Just indoor, and it's just indoor.
She's set school records for the mile and 2 mile already.
Yeah, and those school records were her sister's.
Yep, I saw that.
And that's impressive. And the thing that impressed me the most, maybe her 3,200 time, was it's been top 10 in the nation this year.
and
Maybe,
I don't
just as a
know.
freshman, but there was something I read. I saw a post on social media about it.
Um, I don't know exactly if I'm talking out my ass a little bit here, but I feel like
Possibly.
indoor times aren't always better. Depends on the track, probably. Like how many.
Yeah, a lot of things are. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I know that
I've
like
been to enough indoor meets when Jess ran, and they're kind of cool. Um, However, I
is it usually
400 times usually aren't nearly as good because you've got
more turns,
that's
right?
2 laps more turns. You don't
Yeah,
have those big straightaways.
that's kind
So
of what
I
was.
don't know how that affects. I mean, someone who knows a lot more about track would have to tell me under ideal conditions and outdoor time, because obviously you have cold, you have too much heat, you have wind, all kinds of factors. But I think we'll have athletes at the state track meet in Charleston this year,
Yeah,
which is another awesome thing for this area.
and we'll keep an eye on all of it. I don't know that we have a big plan about how we're going to do shows this spring. Basketball gets the most traction for us. I don't think there's
But we
any.
also get our most views during basketball season.
Yeah, I mean that's we
Yeah,
probably do. We're able to do a little better job talking about it just
yeah,
through the sheer number of games that we're able to go see.
sure.
Spring sports are a little tougher to nail down in that way
Yeah.
because of what time they take place and
I don't like sitting out in the cold anymore, Whitey, when I don't have to.
yeah, I don't
Just
know when our first broadcast is going to be, but I hope it's a nice day. That's all I can say.
it won't be. You'll be cold.
I have boy, when I was at the paper, Effingham always played that first Apollo Conference doubleheader against Newton.
And it'd be rainy and
It
cold.
would be a crap day. It did not matter. Every year, crap
Yeah.
day, just the worst Saturday you can imagine, spending 5 or 6 hours shivering, watching. Although there was one year when uh Meinhardt, Doug, is that uh insurance salesman there in town.
Brad.
Brad. Brad Meinhardt. Yeah, he rigged up a kerosene heater in the old press box. They didn't used to have that big press box at Paul Smith Field. They just had like kind of a little treehouse thing,
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
and they put they tarped it off, and then they put a kerosene heater in there, which probably wasn't like totally safe. But I feel like Brad had something to do with that.
Did you feel better as the day went on from the fumes from that heater, Whitey? Or was
Yeah. Me and Prum were both. He was running the scoreboard. We were both a little loopy by the time it was all said and done. But it was
loopier?
better than being out in the cold, spitting snow
Yeah.
and rain on you. So,
Yeah. Tough to hit a ball when it's that cold, man.
oh,
Those
I
OBs in the
remember.
bats.
Yeah, my senior year, I remember having to go to Charleston to play against one of those Murphy boys who ended up going to U of I to pitch, and he jammed me, and I didn't want to hit the ball again after that. I was like, I think I'll just take the rest of this day off. Just go ahead and strike me out, buddy.
I remember those. Those days were brutal, man.
Oh boy. All right. Well, it's good basketball season. There's plenty of key teams that are going to be good next year. Looking forward to it already. Yeah.
Oh, I have one more thing. We have we Friday we lost a team for the Christmas tournament for next year.
Oh yeah.
So Oak Lawn is making some changes to their schedule. We are working diligently to get that spot fixed. I Within the hour, I at least was in conversation with a school who's wanting in. Will be good if we get them, and it's just we've got to go through some hoops to get there. We're halfway there, so we'll
Well, the
see.
big problem is that that's one less guest for our preview
Yeah,
podcast that we'll.
no, we'll work around it. So we'll see. But yeah, we're already work in progress, and I hope to get an answer by tomorrow, by Monday, as to far as if we've got a fill in for that, which would be awesome. It's a decent team, and they travel, and they're within an hour, so be
Oh,
nice.
good. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about that. Any other news that pops up from around the area, we'll jump on it as we're able to. But there you go.
We are
Again,
taking next week off, Whitey.
oh yeah, we got. I'm
Selection Sunday. You'll be filling out brackets at every place you can submit them in the country. We'll do a bracket challenge this year because I'm not going to be in the hospital. I can fill
Yeah.
one out.
That's a good thing to hope for right there. You know, that you don't spend 2 straight selection Sundays laid up.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I was first 2 days in a hospital bed watching the tournament. Though I got to see a lot of it, but it was hard to watch with one eye open.
Yeah. Yeah. Illinois and Iowa they're probably tipped off by now. So that's
Hey,
what
did I tell you Indiana won, by the way? Just saying.
what beat Michigan State, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking before you started recording. Well, you know, if they do this, could they possibly get
Well,
over?
they got to, if they win 2 games in the tournament, I think they can at least get near a bubble. I didn't say they're going to get in, but I'm
Well,
just saying.
listen, anything they can do to further increase Mike Woodson's job security, I'm okay with, I think, largely speaking, you know. I'm a big fan of the work he's doing there, and I think he should, you know,
They
he should
lost their only 2024 commit, a
I
5-star
saw
kid
that.
decommitted. But
I saw
you
that.
know,
Well, he's just a 5-star recruit, no big deal.
well, they haven't exactly got a lot of miles out of their 5-star people in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've seen plenty of those guys flame out. It has to be a good fit too. It's not just about talent, it's about fit.
Give
So,
me a handful of threes that'll guard and play hard, man.
all right, well, let's call it a week. Call it. I don't know. You should be following us on Facebook. You should subscribe on YouTube. That way, the next time we do one of these, whenever it is, you'll get a notification and you won't
We
miss.
need our own Facebook page for Whitey and Wells. I mean, we're old enough now. We probably should have.
Well, we'll see.
That's a good job for you.
That's what I need. I need something to do. All right, Mike. We'll talk to you when we talk to you.
See you, Whitey.
See ya.